All right, y'all. I'm joined here today by a very special guest. This is Boris from Sistine Research. He's got his YouTube channel going. He's got a Discord group going. He's a full-time trader, crypto investor. I'm honored to have you on the show, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm excited to have you on because I've been following you for a long time, and I really just want to get your story. You're a very interesting guy to me. You're pretty young too. How old are you?
I am 29. I'm 29.
Oh, 29. Still
Yeah.
young. You haven't crossed into the
Yeah.
old yet, which happens next year.
Yeah. Next year I'm an old man.
I'll send you a cane. I kind of just want to get your story because you're a younger guy. You're 29 years old. This is your full time thing, just being in the space. So, how did you get to where you're at right now? Like, what's your story and getting involved with crypto to the point where, I mean, you're literally doing this full time to support yourself? How did that come to be?
Yeah, so I was introduced to crypto probably in 2012, 2011, 2012 by my brother. We were both in high school at the time. He's 2, 3 years older than me. And he was actually like he was into the whole Bitcoin thing. He was mining Bitcoin on his laptop. Unfortunately, and this was when you could still kind of mine it on a desktop or a laptop computer and get some decent Bitcoin rewards before it all switched to like ASICs and big huge mining operations. Even back then, I mean, if you were mining on a laptop or a desktop, you weren't getting, insane rewards, but you were getting rewards to a point where, I mean, they'd be significant today.
Yeah, if you
He
hodled.
ended up losing. Yeah, yeah. He ended up losing that laptop, unfortunately. It was, never able to recover the Bitcoin that were on that laptop. So you can thank him for reducing the circulating supply of Bitcoin a little bit. Yeah, never. I mean, we were in high school. We're broke. Bitcoin wasn't really like a big thing like it is today. I would play it around and, I'd, load up $50 or $100 onto an exchange called BTC-E, which, for anybody that was around that in that time or anybody that wasn't around in that time, it was an exchange that ended up going under for fraud. This was when, everyone talks about FTX going under for fraud. Like that was a pretty common occurrence back in, before 2016. There's all sorts of exchanges doing very sketchy things. You had obviously Mt. Gox getting hacked and whatnot. But really started getting more involved in crypto in the run up in 2016. I was in college at the time. I started mining Ethereum out of my college apartment. I lived in the mountains of North Carolina, so it got pretty cold. So in the winter, I wouldn't even have to turn my heat on because my room was just baking hot because I'd have 20 GPUs just mining ETH and putting out heat in my tiny bedroom. Um, Unfortunately, didn't keep those mining rigs going throughout the bear market like I should have because I graduated college, moved back home, moved in, got married, moved in with my wife, and just having an apartment at the time, having 20 GPU rigs pushing out massive amounts of heat is not exactly what your wife wants in the living room. Of your apartment. So
Especially during a bear
actually
market.
save. Yeah, and in a bear market, right? When we're not even, Ethereum's down at $100. That's, making pennies on the dollar for if you're mining it. So ended up saving for a down payment rather than investing aggressively in the bear market. I did make a few decent, bear market acquisitions and did ride them up in the 2020 2021 bull market. uh, was at the time working in the Facebook advertising industry. And then I moved full time into crypto. I became the head of research at Token Metrics. Um, did that for about a year in the bull market, and then realized that I wanted to branch out and start my own boutique research firm. And that's where Sistine Research was born. So yeah, the rest has been history. Just been fortunate enough to make some decent moves in the market. Nothing groundbreaking. None of the stuff that you read about where, somebody invests $100 and turns it into 10 million. One day we'll hit that jackpot. But for me, it's just been, a lot of a lot of grinding, a lot of finding the next investment, taking profits, having some setbacks, getting back in, and continuing to try to grind the portfolio upwards.
Yeah, man. How did you get involved with token metrics? Because that's not a small deal, you know?
Yeah. So I literally just applied. I knew that so one of the things that when it became clear that we were going to get another bull market, or that towards after the COVID drop, the Bitcoin flushed down to $3,000, when it started recovering rather quickly. I thought to myself, that's when I kind of, started investing heavily. Like I said, I'd been saving up for a down payment. We were buying a house. But that's where I started to put some risk on, just seeing how fast it bounced back and how much money was being printed, and the stimulus checks that were planned to go out. I started aggressively investing. And I knew that, being limited in the amount of capital that I had to really push into the market. I wasn't sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars that I could, like I said, I've been saving up for a down payment, doing things, diligently, the way that you kind of should do them. Wasn't in the position where I could throw in, 300 grand into Bitcoin. I didn't have money to just throw in. So I was like, what? I know we're going to get a bull market, or I feel strongly we're going to get a bull market. What other resources do I have to invest in crypto? Well, I have my time. I have, I have my career. So that was the big bet that I made. Is I said, I want to I want to work in crypto full time. I want to build in crypto. So I started building the YouTube channel, started applying for jobs, was brought on by Token Metrics. And I was at Token Metrics, just continued to work in the space and continued to build the YouTube channel, and ended up branching out and building a community and a Discord, and and my own company now. So it really came about of me taking the leap of, hey, you can invest more than money in this space. You can invest your time and your work and your career, if you're bullish on the crypto space.
Yeah, for sure, man. And well, first I want to ask you, where we stand right now with the crypto market. Do you foresee another bull market coming like what we've had in the past? You've got so many people that are saying, well, Bitcoin and all the history of crypto has been in a global bull market. Now we're heading into a recession. You have no idea what the future holds. Who cares about Bitcoin when, you can't buy food,
Sure.
What do you see for the next 2 or 3 years? Because for me, I have a lot of eggs in there's going to be another bull market basket,
Yeah. I would agree. I do think there's going to be another bull market, and I do think there's valid points to, the counter argument. And I do think, there's always uncertainties. But really for me, in my guiding light through trying to uncipher the markets a little bit, is everything price just boils down to supply and demand, right? So you need a supply catalyst and you need a demand catalyst, and you could have one or the other, but ideally for a really strong price move, you want a big catalyst on either side. So with the supply catalyst, which I think is going to be getting weaker and weaker every single 4 years, is the Bitcoin halving, right? Obviously in the first halvings, right, you would go from 50 Bitcoin mined per block to 25 Bitcoin mined per block. Well, that's a really large drop, right? But it decreases over time. So I think this next one we're going from, and I could be wrong here, which would be embarrassing, but I think it's like 6.125 Bitcoin down to like 3.1 something or another. It's like from 6 to 3, or maybe it's from 12 to 6. Regardless, this drop is going to be smaller. I still think it'll be significant, and I still think it is a valid supply side catalyst to where it's going to start restricting the supply flows of Bitcoin, like it does every 4 years. But I think it's a fairly popular opinion that the effects of the halving kind of diminish over time. I don't think that's too crazy of a prediction, or
we see that on the chart
belief.
too. With
Yeah,
the
we see it
percent
on the
gains.
chart. Yeah, exactly. We see it on the chart. But you really also want a large demand side catalyst, right? Supply side doesn't matter if nobody can afford to buy Bitcoin or nobody wants to buy Bitcoin.
Right.
And what we're seeing is I was actually a lot more bearish on Bitcoin, not bearish in the sense that I think it's going to go to zero, but bearish on the idea that we would have another big bull market. I didn't think it was going to be as big as I think it's going to be now. And what's really shifted my mind is all this talk about the traditional finance space getting involved, particularly through a Bitcoin ETF, because
Right.
all of a sudden we went from having really no demand side catalyst aside from maybe people wanting to speculate based on the halving, like normal. So maybe, we would get a small bump and a small little bull run, or, maybe Bitcoin goes to 90K off of that halving alone. But when you start introducing these institutional flows and the demand that potentially brings in for Bitcoin, now you have a supply side catalyst and a demand side catalyst, to where I think that we do see a pretty large bull market for crypto, particularly if nothing else for Bitcoin. We'll see how regulation ends up going for some of these altcoins, and how that space shakes out. But I think Bitcoin is pretty accepted that it's not a security. And if these Bitcoin ETFs get approved, there's a very large amount of money that can flow into Bitcoin through those instruments that, you see so many people get hacked, or you see the problems with self custody. And the
Right.
average person doesn't want to self custody their Bitcoin. And I'm all for self custody. Like, go for it. Like, I think it's a great way to control your own keys, control your own crypto. You own it. The government doesn't own it. I'm all for that. But for the broader world, where that's a little bit complicated, to write down, your key. There's people that can barely remember their PIN number, and they have to write down their PIN number on a sticky note, so when they go to the bank, they can get money out of the ATM, right?
Right.
So I think this Bitcoin ETF is going to be the vehicle that brings a lot of demand into Bitcoin. And even if people don't understand it, I think you're going to have a lot of the asset managers like BlackRock and Vanguard and some of these other asset managers that are just going to be like, hey, let's move a little bit of your portfolio. Let's move, let's rebalance. We'll take some out of commodities and oil and tech stocks, move a little bit more into Bitcoin, especially going into this halving cycle. And I think I know there's a long-winded answer, but we do have the supply side and the demand side catalyst coming that you would expect, that you'd want to have for another bull market to occur.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, the original Bitcoiners, I mean, the idea of this marriage between traditional finance and the crypto space is anathema because, just crypto, Bitcoin itself, allegedly, according to the white paper, is created to circumvent all these types of systems. But, it's becoming more and more apparent to me that there's a lot of issues with self-custody as well, although I would rather have self-custody.
For sure.
But a lot of people are losing money, like myself. I just lost, $700,000.
I didn't follow up where it was. Were you ever able to recover anything or get any leads on anything?
They were able to track down some things, and I just decided not to pursue it any farther because the chances are so
Gotcha.
slim of anything coming of it.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to extend the experience longer than it has to be,
I feel you. I think I'd probably do the same thing in your shoes. I'm actually surprised. Like, I didn't know I've never been through that process before. So I wasn't sure like how it all worked. And I'm actually surprised. I would have thought they would just try to recover all your money. And then if they can recover it, they would take a fee. But it sounds like they wanted to be paid up front. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense when the chances are slim.
Well, it makes sense to me because, they're putting in the work, whether or not they're going
That's
to get the
true.
desired result, they're still putting in the time. So I totally get that. It's not even the money really. It's the extending of the process. Like the money, like paying money up front is part of why I don't want to do it. But it's like, do I really want to like sit here for like months while they're like tracking it?
Yeah.
It's like, not really, you know?
Yeah. Just better to move on and rebuild.
Yeah, build back better. That's my
Yeah.
motto.
That's
So
funny.
that's what I'm doing now, man. I'm not letting it get me down. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, if anyone can do it, man, it's you. I've had pretty nasty setbacks myself in this space. I think it's inevitable, man. You stay in this, crypto space long enough or in business long enough, life will come up and rock you, man.
yeah, man. It is what it is, and like I was saying in the video I made, it's a real eye opener for me of like just kind of checking where my mind is at, where my heart is at, as far as
Yeah,
like feeling secure when you have money, when in reality there's not really any security in that, whether or not it gets
100%.
stolen.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Blessed in my life, in many, many ways, but, yeah, I feel like I get gut checked all the time. Whether, I'm, if I just feel like it's, God will remind you. He will remind you not to put faith in money. And it's when your job, or like my job is, trading and investing, and your job revolves so much around money. It's very easy to get kind of sucked into the idea of money's everything, and it's really not.
Right. It's a subtle thing too, because you don't realize it sometimes until you lose $700,000. But
Uh,
you know, I just look at my life, bro. I have everything I need,
yeah,
and it's funny because functionally in life, there's nothing's changed since losing the money. Like
yeah,
it was there like in savings because I had plans and ideas for it, but my day to day hasn't changed. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just
No, 100%. I get
expensive
it, man.
lesson.
I've had some nasty setbacks, and it's the same thing. It's just like I still wake up and do the same thing every day. It's just back to work. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, man. What was like one of your worst setbacks? If you feel like sharing.
I mean, I've had multiple times where I've just lost six figures in a day. I've had blown trading accounts, and that's something that doesn't happen with any degree of frequency anymore. Because I've implemented some safety measures to keep that from happening. I always keep my accounts at $10,000. I always start them at $10,000, regardless of how much money I have set aside to actually be trading, and I trade accordingly. So the worst drawdown I can have possible now is $10,000. If I run an account from 10,000 to 50,000, I take profits out of it, and I just remove it, and I'll just reset it from $10,000. So at any given time, it really comes down to risk management, but kind of money management, right? I've had setbacks just in large market crashes where I'm just exposed to the market, and
Mm.
it's taken me time to get out. Even recently, there was a big NFT crash, and uh, it was a kind of a 7 or 8 month long trade where I ended the trade up, probably, multi six figures up, which is a lot for me, right? I'm not somebody who's just, I don't have millions and millions of dollars stowed away. I wish I did. But I had a really successful NFT trade getting in at the beginning of the year when the market was down in January, and it rode it all the way up until the last couple months. And then just in the in like 2 days, in a 2 day span, the NFT market turned. Some projects crashed pretty hard, and it took me some time to get out. So from where it from the start of the trade to the end of the trade, it was still a very successful trade. But that the feeling of not getting out at the top and watching your portfolio value, your NFT portfolio value, drop from 600,000 to 400,000, that's in 2 days that's a $200,000 loss. Like that's, had I taken profits 2 days before or gotten out of the market 2 days before, would have had another $200,000. So it's, it's funny because you can never time the top exactly, but by not timing the top exactly. It just still feels like a major loss, even though it was a win. Hey, you see the portfolio value in your portfolio tracker, and then 2 days later, those unrealized gains can just disappear. So yeah, I mean, pretty sickening. It is pretty gross when you have that much exposure to the market and it's just gone in a day or two. And like when you put it into terms of like what that money could actually do and what that money could buy, and what that money means to me, my family, and to what it means potentially to other people. It's a gross amount of money, even if it is in unrealized gains, to watch disappear from your portfolio value. So I've had other setbacks too. I mean, I've been through, got into crypto like 20, technically really early, but I was in high school and college, had no money to invest. But, in the first, then they're not the first, but the 2016, 2017 market cycle, I mean, I was unfamiliar with crypto, and things were relatively new. The idea of, like market cycles, and I rode up the bull market and gave most of my gains back right in the bear market. Right. We saw Ethereum go to $1,400, and I was fortunate enough to invest in Ethereum pretty early. Again, being a college kid, you didn't have a ton to invest, but wrote a portfolio up from basically nothing to tens of thousands of dollars, almost six figures, and then watched a lot of it dissipate, and lessons learned there. But this market this space is brutal, and the gains, it's never a straight line up. It's funny. It's just, I've never met anybody who's just, had, been in the space, had a straight line up, just done nothing but make money, get out at the exact right times, and have no setbacks. So it's
right. So you're an interesting guy because you do TA like every single day. You give trade setups for free on YouTube for Bitcoin and altcoins. But you're also really big into just like researching and buying and holding like positions for months or years, right?
Yep.
So you kind of do a little bit of both. Where I'm just really into Bitcoin, and then I'm like a day trader. But so how do you balance that out? So you're a short-term trader, you're a long-term trader. You spend all day just researching projects. What do you spend the bulk of your time doing?
Yeah, so it really depends on the market, right? And for me, it's really been a way of managing risk and managing my portfolio. So like, I have things separated completely. So I've got my long-term portfolio, which is going to comprise at any given time the vast majority of my positions and money in crypto. So I have my long-term portfolio that may be 70 to 90% of my crypto portfolio, and there will at given times there will be stable coins in that portfolio. In fact, right now it's like it's heavily weighted towards stable coins, because I do think we could get some more downside if this Bitcoin ETF doesn't get approved on October 16th.
Yeah.
Right. But you kind of, if you're living in this space every single day and you see all these news headlines and you're paying attention to the charts, the temptation is there to like, try to trade that, and make big trades where I sell, all my coins for, all my coins and try to buy them back 10% cheaper. Or I buy, I buy, I go 100% all in, and I try to cash out, 20, 30% higher. And that can be very destructive when you're trading your entire portfolio like that. And I know some people that do that, and that's kind of, you have people that'll, manage their portfolios more like a fund. And that's not me. I do rebalance it. I do, invest based off of research. And that's one aspect of it. But there's also, I do a lot of TA, and I'm confident as a trader. So I set aside about 10+% of my portfolio or exposure to just having a trading account ready to make those kind of smaller intraday, intra-week moves as I see fit. And it's a nice balance. I think a lot of people, they run into some risk management problems because they mix investing and trading strategies up, and they make a couple of bad trades, all of a sudden they're down, but they don't have a dividing line between what is for long term, what is for trading.
Right.
And all of a sudden they start dipping into their long term stuff to trade more, right? And they go down this cycle, and all of a sudden their entire net worth or their entire portfolio is down 50 or 60% because they've just been over trading it. They've just been trying to make something happen. And a lot of times for me, for my longer term stuff, you just want to kind of sit on it for a little
Leave it
while,
alone,
look for
man.
those big opportunities, leave it alone, look for those opportunities where Solana drops below $10, look for those opportunities where Ethereum drops below 1200. And those are the times where I'm really paying attention with my long-term portfolio, trying to make some kind of longer-term moves. But the intraday stuff, if I'm just looking to hold a trade for a day or two, or even a week, I'm going to be doing that at a much smaller scale, a much more managed scale for my risk, management.
Yeah. It's good to have that balance. And we approach the markets in, I think, two different styles, but yeah, that's really good to have, because when I first got into trading as well, like I had been already in Bitcoin for about a few years when I got into trading, and I fell into that trap as well. So, but you mentioned that you think if the ETF doesn't get approved next month, that we're going to see some more downside. So I'm actually leaning a little bit more bearish on Bitcoin right now, regardless of the news, just based on the technicals. So do you want to pull up a chart and kind of give your analysis on what you see happening for the next few months with Bitcoin?
Sure. More than happy to. I do think on your end that you'll need to enable screen sharing.
Yeah, you're right. There we go.
All right. So it might take me just a second to get this pulled up.
No worries. I can edit all this,
Oh, cool. I'll share my screen here. Yeah. So we'll pull up Bitcoin. So I do, I've got a lot of kind of I guess weird, uncommon indicators that a lot of people don't use, and I map them out, and I kind of derive all of these levels, and it gets a
These are
little bit
your own
messy, but
indicator, right? You made these indicators.
yeah, I designed a set of indicators because there's just certain things in the market, behaviors in the market that I want to isolate for. And there's weren't any existing indicators that isolate for those things. And one of those things is something. This is actually a recent indicator that I designed, because, and this data is all, of course, this data is available if you look for it online, but actually importing it into TradingView is kind of important for me. So like, for example, September, right? So all I did was I grabbed, this set of data going back as far as I can on Bitstamp for Bitcoin. And this is just seasonal data. So this was a big thing for me, and this is becoming a bigger thing for me in my research and my overall portfolio management. Even it leaks into my trading, is that historically for the S&P 500 and for Bitcoin, right? Because the two do share some correlation. September is historically the worst performing month. And we just grabbed all this Bitcoin data, and you actually see the only month with negative returns is September. Now, so far in September, we've actually, we're putting in, we're almost through there. We're putting in a small candle, but it's very infrequent that September is just a blow up, amazing month for Bitcoin. So I've been a little bit more sidelined this month, a little bit more cautious, not worried about missing out on a big 50% run, because I just don't think it's going to happen in the month of September for Bitcoin. It just historically, it's a bad month. But then we look into October, November, December, and we actually see that October, November, and December are very, very high performing months for both Bitcoin and the S&P 500. So
is this
I
data
do
right
think
now
that
for S&P and Bitcoin together, or are you only looking at Bitcoin and telling us also it's the same?
Yeah, I'm only looking at Bitcoin, but this is
Gotcha.
just measuring for whatever chart that I've got pulled up. So I can go to the S&P 500, and I can grab, with S&P 500, you can grab a large sampling of data. I can take this all the way back to the beginning of the S&P 500, and you see, like, September is -1%,
That's
and
wild,
then
man.
but October. yeah, October, November, December are strong months in Q4. And so that kind of shapes my base. The people say the trend is your friend, and it's the same idea. There is kind of a prevailing trend when it comes to seasonality. So I do want to align myself with that trend. But if we go to like Bitcoin on some of the shorter time frames, my base case is quite simply centered around this ETF decision around October 16th. So I do think my general thought is that, hey, this ETF, if it gets passed, it's pretty bullish. So I do think it's propping up the market a little bit, and I do think that we see some level of drift, up towards. I don't know what specific levels, right? And it could get choppy, and it might not be a straight line, but I do think that we see some speculation, even if we do something like this. As the closer we get to that ETF date, I think you're going to start to see some people speculate on this going through. And because of that, if it doesn't go through and it doesn't get approved, I think you see a pretty nasty washout. Because on the other side of this ETF, there's not a lot of positive news for Bitcoin until you get to the halving next year. And there's actually a lot of negative news in terms of supply flows, right? So you have the Mt. Gox distribution that is, the deadline was delayed by a year, but the distributions will actually be going out by the end of the year, a lot of them. You have the US government that has like 30,000 Bitcoin that they want to sell. So you have some of these supply catalysts that could really, put a damper on Bitcoin price action in Q4 if we don't get this Bitcoin ETF approved. My opinion, though, is if we do get the Bitcoin ETF approved, I think we go up quite a bit. I think it's a really, really
You
big
think
deal.
we make a new high? Like, you think we take out the current high for 2023?
Oh, this 31K level?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's very, very, very likely. If we get a Bitcoin ETF approved, and there's like 6 of them that need to be approved, if they sweep through and approve all of them on October 16th, I do think that we'll take out the high. And I do think that will lead to a Q4 like we've seen in the past with Bitcoin, where it's quite positive, bullish. But I think that if we don't get the Bitcoin ETF, if we get it another delay, I do think that there's potential to break down, and there's just some basic trends that we've broken, and some basic moving averages that we've broken, and we're kind of trying to back test, and just really, some basic TA stuff where, if we fail these levels and don't get a Bitcoin ETF, I could definitely see us returning, making a lower low and a lower high, and starting to trend downwards into some of these range levels down here, closer to 20K, maybe even 18K, which I know, like, not people don't like to talk about that. People don't like to talk about the idea that, maybe Bitcoin does go down to some of those levels, but it is what it is. Just try to keep it as objective as possible.
I mean, I honestly think the chart looks bearish. And I'm
I would
in a
agree.
short, and my final target on the short is 16.5, the yearly open.
There, I mean, yeah, I'm in line with that, particularly if we don't get the Bitcoin ETF. If we, for me, a lot of my decision making is going to boil down to whether or not we get this ETF. I think if we get it, we run and we recover, and the chart starts to look better. But if we don't get it, I mean, I'm targeting similar levels. Probably somewhere between 16 and 21.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, so it's going to be a big month next month. We'll have to wait and see, man. Maybe we'll have another conversation in hindsight and talk about how we're either rich or broke. But yeah, man, I really appreciate having you on the channel. Thanks for sharing all your expertise, bro. And where can people find you? Where can they find you on YouTube, on Discord, all that?
Yeah, so my website is Sistine.ai. So that's Sistine, like the Sistine Chapel. And then my YouTube channel is Sistine Research. Sistine Research on Twitter. And yeah, there's links and everything to the Discord and indicators bundle and stuff on my website. So just check out Sistine.ai if you're curious. And yeah, that's the best way to go about it.
Cool, man. Well, Forrest, appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on. And
yeah, thanks for having me on. It's an honor.
For sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, y'all. Take care. Peace.